Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, Emmanuel Forbes reportedly to have surgery on a torn UCL in his thumb. This, according to Ian Rappaport. The news comes down is a bit surprising, being that he was a part of the locker room scrum that we'll get to a little bit later on in the show. And head coach Dan Quinn yesterday talked about initially his wrist, which was erroneous. It was then clarified to be a thumb injury and said he would have a splint on it and that he'd be good to go. He practiced fully yesterday. He practiced on a limited basis today. And then word came out from Ian Rappaport not even an hour ago that Emmanuel Forbes is scheduled to have surgery. And obviously, if you're having surgery, that means you're out. Now, there's no timetable set for how long he's going to be out, but he's going to be out. Whether he's placed on IR or not, whether they're able to put a soft cast on his hand after surgery and then put a hard cast on it and he's able to play, remains to be seen in 2 to 3 weeks from now. So IR might not necessarily be the option that they go with. But my guess is they put him on short-term IR. That'll give them a month and give him a month to heal, give them an opportunity to work him back in from a cardiovascular standpoint once he's ready. Maybe he doesn't have to, because it's not a lower extremity injury, he can still do cardio, right? He can still keep himself in good shape. It's his hand. It's not anything lower body-wise keeping him off his feet. So you probably don't even need that ramp-up period necessarily to get him back out there. But it's interesting timing for a guy that I don't think many of us were very high on and didn't really want to see on the field anyway. But I thought it was important that the coaching staff stayed behind him and continued to support him, because that's what the last group didn't do. At the first sight of trouble, they bailed on the young kid and told him he wasn't good enough and really effed with his psyche last year. So it was important that this new group came in and said, hey, you're good. Shake it off. Get back out there and show what you're capable of. And it's important that you have people in your corner that believe in you. And I think this group was doing that. This injury is going to set him back. But it sets the stage for my guy that I told you I thought was going to have a big impact this season in Michael Davis. Now, I still think the guy they turn to first, though, is Noah Igbenogany, because when Forbes came out of the game against Tampa Bay, on Sunday, they went to Noah Igbenogany. They did not go to Michael Davis. So my guess is they go to Noah Igbenogany first. I hope they go to Michael Davis. That's my hope. We may see Michael Davis. He played not one snap defensively in the game on Sunday, did Michael Davis. So my guess is that they turn to Noah Igbenogany. He'll be opposite of Benjamin St-Juste, and they'll move forward there. But we'll see how they decide to configure the secondary now. This may not be a bad thing. To be brutally honest, this may not be a bad thing at all. We'll see how it turns out and if this thing is able to kind of help solidify the secondary a bit and settle things down and get them to play a little bit better football. I tell you what, it's not going to be an easy task this week. Although Daniel Jones sucks, his skill position players do not suck. And so even Daniel Jones can hit an open receiver if you don't do your job. And so they're going to have to be better than they were a week ago in order to get the intended effect and changes and effects that we're looking for. They're going to have to play better and be more assignment oriented and detailed moving forward. But Emmanuel Forbes out of the lineup for the foreseeable future is my guess. Again, no timetable has been set as to how long he's going to be out. But the thought process is short-term IR is definitely within reason here. And I think that's ultimately going to be the next move for the Commanders. And then there'll be a subsequent move from a roster standpoint. If you do place him on short-term IR, who comes and takes that roster spot? There might be a move made in conjunction with him being placed on IR. If that is the case, we do not know if that's going to happen or not. But Emmanuel Forbes to have surgery. I know some of you are like, yay, never root for someone to be injured, never root for someone to be out of the lineup due to injury. Not on your own team, at least. Okay. So, with that said, speedy recovery. I'm hoping that the young fella gets healthy and gets back on the field. And I hope he plays well. I'm rooting for him like hell I am. I mean, I am rooting for him to succeed. I know a lot of you are done with him. I was very emotional on Sunday because I've seen this movie before with players, and I just want accountability. And I haven't felt that from Emmanuel Forbes yet. But this group is going to demand accountability. And so I think he's going to become a better player because of it. But this is a setback for him, no doubt about that. He dealt with an injury last year too, right? And I think it was a hand injury, if I'm not mistaken, last year as well. So 2 years, 2 injuries, 2 a hand, a little brittle, if I may say so myself. But I digress. In other news, we heard from the 2 coordinators some really interesting thoughts from both of them. And again, I'm sticking with the accountability piece. Love the accountability from both of these gentlemen. We'll talk about what was said by them today. We had a locker room scrum yesterday. We got that audio today. So we're going to talk about what some of the players in the locker room said after practice on Wednesday. But before we do any of that, of course, we have to take a look at the injury report after Thursday's practice for both teams. Start with the good guys. Nothing really here to see. This is a very positive injury report for the good guys. Ertz back on a full basis after taking a day off yesterday just for rest purposes, a vet rest day. Johnny Newton limited today. I was hoping to see a FP for him. That's not really what I was hoping. And maybe this is by design. Everything they've done has been intentional. It sounded like Dan Quinn, it sounded like DQ they were going to push him, is what it sounded like to me. Like they're going to put him out there and give him a full full workload of practice. That's what it sounded like. I could have misread that. And the intent all along was to put him out there on a limited basis and not overwork him. But I was hoping to see an FP by his name today. Tyler Owens, after being limited yesterday with an ankle, full participant. That's great news. Brandon Coleman continues his upward trajectory. Played in the game on Sunday, 14 snaps. Full participant yesterday, full participant again today. At some point, I'd love to see him just be off of this thing altogether. Hopefully, we're trending in that direction. Forbes, we just mentioned him, was a full participant yesterday with the thumb. Today, limited, and I'm assuming that he will be pulled off of this thing by tomorrow, and a decision will be made on whether to put him on short-term IR or not. But he's not playing in this game on Sunday, obviously, if they're going to have surgery here in the next day or two. Brian Robinson Jr. and Trent Scott both dealing with mild knee issues. Both were full participants yesterday and today. So, again, really nothing to see here from the good guys, which is a good thing if you're a Commanders fans. Meanwhile, for the New York Giants, it's a little bit of a different story for them. Nick McLeod dealing with a knee injury, didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today, so that means that's a real injury, right? Gunnar Olszewski dealing with a groin injury, didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today, that's a real injury. Darius Muasau didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today with a knee injury, that's a real injury. Darius Slayton, damn it, man. Again, never want to see anybody get hurt, but if you show up on the injury report, now I'm hoping you don't play. Okay, I'm not looking for you to get hurt. I want you to be healthy. But if you get hurt before you get to us, hey, let us reap the benefits of it. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case with Darius Slayton. Generally, when somebody gets a concussion in a game prior to yours, he's going to be out. The fact that he was limited on Thursday gives him hope to play on Sunday. Friday's practice will go a long way in determining if he's limited again on Friday. He's got a shot to play. If he, doesn't practice, or if he's full on Friday, he's playing. If he's limited again on Friday, there's a chance he won't play, but more likely than not, he is going to play. I needed another DNP today from Darius Slayton. him practicing on a limited basis probably means he's going to play. Michael McFadden, groin, he was full yesterday, so there was no doubt in my mind he was going to be good to go on Sunday. But here's an interesting development here. We saw a similar thing last week with the Bucks with their talented defensive tackle, Kalijah Cansey, who showed up randomly on a Thursday with a calf injury, and ultimately was out of the game. Here we go. Thursday, Malik Neighbors shows up with the knee, limited. I don't think it's very serious, right? I don't think it's serious enough to keep him out. But if I'm not mistaken, he had tweaked something, I think, in the preseason in training camp, but he was okay. I think he's fine. But what it means is he's not 100%, which is good for us, okay? But he's going to play in this game. There's no doubt in my mind. But just the fact that he showed up on the injury report when he wasn't here yesterday, something to monitor and keep tabs of. But I think he's going to be fine, and he's going to play in the game on Sunday. But limited participant on Thursday, just something to keep an eye on. All right, so let's get back to in other news. So we got the two coordinators speaking today, and we heard from Cliff Kingsbury first, and Cliff talked about the offense, obviously, and really the first thing he talked about was the receivers, and he said that he was pleased with the way that the offense kind of ran and how the receivers lined up, how they competed. There weren't really many mental mistakes. He talked about really with the offense as a whole. There weren't very many penalties from that standpoint. Most of the penalties that we suffered in the game were defensive penalties. We had 7 penalties on Sunday, and most of them were defensive penalties, if not all of them being defensive penalties. I can't recall a single offensive penalty now that I think about it. There may have been one or two, but the blocking the back, that phantom blocking the back they called on Olamide Zaccheaus, which was just egregious. There was that one. I don't think there was another one, though. There weren't any real pre-snap, legal shift. Maybe there was one of those, a legal formation or something like that. I don't really recall too many of those, though. So he praised the offense for that. He praised the receivers for, getting where they needed to be correctly, lining up correctly, running good routes, presenting themselves as a target to Jaden Daniels. He felt good about what they did. Now it's just about executing, right? He talked about the offensive line, same thing. He said, hey, for a group that really hadn't been together for, a lot of the preseason and in camp, they went out there and there were no penalties. The communication was solid. It wasn't great, wasn't top tier, but and part of that is you're shuffling in and out guys at left tackle, and so he was asked about that. Like at some point, don't you want, continuity amongst 5 guys and that's it? And he's like, yeah, ultimately that's the goal, and he talked about both of those guys, Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman, earning the right to play, specifically Lucas. And he said Coleman was the guy that they really like, and he's super talented, and they wanted to get his feet wet, get him some reps, and eventually they'll get to the point where I think they hand that baton off to him. But right now, I think we're going to continue to see this 2-man shuffle at left tackle, and we'll see how that continues to go and how long they keep up that situation, because I'm not a huge fan of that. At some point, this is not college. You didn't sit in somebody's living room and tell them they were going to start or they were going to play in their freshman year. This is the NFL. And I'm not a big fan of you get 2 possessions, you get a possession. You get 5 possessions, you get a possession, so that a guy doesn't want to transfer. Either you're playing or you're not. That's kind of how I feel about the NFL. So at some point, I'd like to see them rip the Band-Aid off with Brandon Coleman and just let him play. Really, Cornelius Lucas should be at right tackle, but that's another discussion for another day. We don't need to have it because clearly they're not going to bench Andrew Wiley, okay? But that's what it should be, to be honest with you. Cornelius Lucas should be on the field, and he should be on the field at right tackle. But that's no here nor there. He talked about Luke McCaffrey and his development. And he's like, for a guy that didn't play the receiver position, he's done well. And for a guy that really wasn't the starter per se in camp and in the preseason. For him to jump in there and play the way that he did, he was really proud of him. He was asked about Austin Eckler, and he talked about Eckler and Zach Ertz being, kind of comfort blankets, so to speak, safety blankets rather, for a young quarterback. It's always nice to have a guy that's an inviting target, that's a check down, that gets to where he's supposed to be and can do something with the football in his hands after he catches it. And that's what Austin Eckler provides. And Cliff went back to the same thing he had said the last time when talking about Eckler, that, his losing a step was greatly exaggerated after leaving the Chargers. He's like, this guy looks to be in pristine shape, whether it's in the weight room, on the practice field, or in the game. This guy looks to be in extraordinary shape, and we're glad to have him, which we've all seen. And I already told you, I think him and Brian Robinson are going to have tremendous years for this team if both of them remain healthy. He talked about Jaden Daniels, obviously, and he talked about, and this is the accountability that I'm talking about. He said, I made one of the worst calls I've ever made in my life. And then, of course, the reporters, their ears perked up. Oh, you made the worst call of your life? So they asked him about it like 3 times. You could tell Cliff was like, bro, I already told y'all what the call was. I explained why it was the worst call. Like, how many times y'all gonna ask me about this shit? But our reporters be slow. So he talked about the call in particular. It was the last call of the day offensively for us. Not the 2-point conversion, but the one that Jaden backed up into the end zone on. He said that was a terrible call because I didn't give him any out, right? I didn't tag it with anything. I didn't give him a check to go along with it. So if they were in a look that was going to take it away, he could check to something else and get out of it. He just ran with it, and it wasn't a good play call against the defense that the Bucs were showing. He said, I got him going up against 3 guys who are unblocked, including the highest paid safety in the NFL. He's talking about Antoine Winfield Jr. And he's like, somehow this guy competes his butt off and finds a way to back his way into the end zone after a blunder of a call by me. So he said, I'll never do that again. That was my fault. And I told him as much, and I got to be better. And so that's the accountability I'm looking for, right? And because if you're going to tell the players they got to own it, and you're going to talk about Tell the Truth Monday, everybody's got to tell the truth, because that was a total team loss. Everybody had their hand in that defeat on Sunday. And so he talked about, some plays he'd love to have back, some of those inside runs with Jaden. Yeah, I'd like to have some of those back. And then he said, at some point, people are talking about how many carries Jaden had. And obviously it's a big topic of discussion, and we need him to protect himself, but he's also a competitor. And he said the thing that I took away from this game more so than anything else is just how hard this guy competes and how much he wants it and how much of a competitor he is. We're down big. You're at the end of the game. You're playing for nothing at this point. And this guy goes out, takes us down the field, gets in the end zone. I make a garbage call, and he turns it into a call that makes me right. And he said he's earning the respect of these players in the locker room. And I literally heard one of the veterans, Zach Ertz, literally say that in the locker room. Like, we saw this guy go out and compete, put his body on the line, and guys recognize that, and we respect that. So Cliff talked about, being better in terms of the execution of things. And he said, we'll be better, right? That was his first game, and that was the offense's first game. And for it to be the first game, not many mistakes, right? Not many mental mistakes. So that's a positive. Still wanted somebody to ask him about getting Terry more targets and more involved. Still nobody asked, but that's fine. He talked about, and I need to make an adjustment to something that I said yesterday. I said that we had 9 possessions and we had scoring opportunities on 5. That was inaccurate. We had 8 possessions because I forgot that we got the ball right before half and took a knee. That counts as a possession when it's really not. So out of 8 possessions, we had scoring opportunities on 5 of them, and it would have been 6 had Jaden connected with Terry McLaurin on the opening play of the second half. So for the offense, I really think it was a really good day. And Cliff said, look, Todd Bowles gave us a lot of looks that you're just not going to see, a lot of exotic looks that you're probably not going to see the remainder of the season. So for him to not turn it over, for him to be as poised, cool, calm, and collected and do the things that he did. And he said, look, if I had his wheels, I'd be doing the same thing too, right? He said, in your first NFL game, you're kind of going to be fight or flight, right? If you see something, you don't like it, you're going to take off and use your legs. So, he's going to continue to grow in that regard as well. And, we feel really good about, what we saw in week 1. And that's essentially what Cliff Kingsbury said. As far as Joe Witt Jr. is concerned, he started off the press conference by talking about the Bucs game and kind of putting a lid on that and saying, look, there were 3 major issues with what took place. 1, we didn't have proper leverage. 2, he said that he didn't see the speed that they want to play with, right? That especially late in the game. And he didn't want to say it, but he was insinuating, I'll say it for him. They were tired. They were tired. And he literally said, we talked about rotating guys in and rolling with a deep crew, and we're going to have to do that. So as much as I complained about not seeing Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen and the whole starting unit on the field together, I'd like to see them stagger that a little bit better. But it sounds like they're going to continue to do that, and they may do it even more because clearly we were tired at the end of the game. And that's something that they don't want to see moving forward. None of us do. And then he said that the communication was amiss, which we all know. And I talked about that right after the game. I've talked about it all week. Talked about it during the film session. The communication was bad. He didn't mention tackling in that, but he ultimately went back and talked about tackling as well and said that was not up to our standard. And a lot of it came from guys not taking the extra step. He said instead of taking that extra step, they lunged or they dove and they were out of position. And he cited one play in particular, and it's the play that I brought up. And he didn't say the play, but I know exactly the play he's talking about. It was that little screen pass to Rachaad White out in the left flats where Bobby Wagner got stiff arm missed. And then Jeremy Chin came over, got stiff arm and missed. And he went down the sideline and got like 25 yards. And that shouldn't have happened. That should have been a 1 or 2 yard gain. If that. Bobby Wagner red screen, Chin got over there, and neither one of them made the play because and both of them looked like they lunged a step too soon. And that's kind of what he was talking about. He said, we don't take guys to the ground in practice a lot anymore. So what we have to do is we have to work on proper positioning when we go in for the tackle. So he talked about third downs. That was the first thing he said. We were crushed on third downs. Third downs was a big one. The second thing he said was they didn't have proper positioning, they didn't have proper leverage, and then they didn't communicate well. Third downs were a killer. They were 9 of 13. And he credited the Bucs. He said, "Look, not taking anything away from the Bucs. They did a lot, but they didn't do anything that we didn't prepare for. They didn't do anything on the field that we didn't see on tape that we didn't feel comfortable, defending. We just didn't execute." And he said, I came in, and it was tell the truth. He said, "Look, that's on me. When guys don't use proper leverage, when guys don't communicate, that's on me as a coach. I got to make sure that we're hearing it." And it's not okay for a guy to say, well, I told them, and that's that. He's like, no. You got to make sure that not only did you communicate it, but you know that they got it. It's not okay to just yell it and not know if they got the message or not. You got to make sure that it's communicated. I got it, right? Like there has to be some sort of communication that lets you know that your message got across. So he's like, we got to communicate better, and I'm going to make sure of that moving forward. That's on me. And he said leverage, sometimes we didn't play with proper leverage, and sometimes we got beat. We had the right call, we had the right leverage, and we still got beat. If we're playing with inside leverage, you can't get beat across your face. If we're playing with outside leverage, you can't let the guy get outside of you. And I remember watching one play in particular, Emmanuel Forbes is playing with inside leverage on a third down slant by Chris Godwin, and he still gets beat across his face for a first down, right? And so that's kind of what he's talking about. Like if we're playing with the proper leverage, you have to then take it away. You can't. He said we had a chance to take the football away. We didn't do that. We didn't get off the field on third downs. And those are things that are going to get you beat every single time if you don't clean them up. But he said the beauty of it is we went in. He said, those Tell the Truth Mondays are uncomfortable meetings. They're supposed to be, but they're necessary for the kind of development and growth that you need. You tell the guys the truth. He said, and we do this as an entire defense. You know, some teams, they separate them, put them into groups, D-line, linebackers, you know, secondary. And he said, then, you know, you got the D-line pointing the finger at the linebackers, the secondary pointing the finger at the defensive line. He's like, nah, we all in this room together, and everybody's hearing what's being said. So everybody's taking accountability for their part in what we did on Sunday. And then we move on. He's like, we wipe the slate clean, because what you can't do is let Sunday's performance beat you twice. You already got beat once because of it. You move on after you've addressed the issues, and then you work on those things. And he said, here's the thing. And this is what I told the guys. He said, when you put this on film, teams are going to test you, right? And I literally talked about this with you guys yesterday, right? When you put that on tape, even if that's not a part of their game plan necessarily, they're going to say, hey, it worked last week. Let's see if it works again this week. Let's see if they fixed the problem that they had a week ago. Because this is where this old adage comes from. It's a copycat league, and this is what copycat is all about. Hey, this worked last week, so let's try these stacks and bunches this week. Let's see if they have an issue with the wheel route up the sideline. Let's see if they have an issue covering the corner route, right? With a clear out up the sideline, the corner, and flooding the zone, right? Let's see if they struggle with that concept of covering that, because we struggled mightily covering corner routes last week. You would have thought we'd never seen a corner route in our lives. So he said, when you put that on tape, you're going to be tested. And if you don't fix it, you're going to keep seeing it. So I told them, you got to clean it up, because it's coming. They're going to do it next week. So Witt talked about that. He talked about, you know, the getting to the quarterback. He said, but you got to get him on the ground, you know, and we worked on that this week. You got to get the quarterback on the ground. Love the pursuit, love the pressure up front. Got to get to the quarterback, got to get him on the ground. And he said, Daniel Jones is even more athletic than Baker Mayfield. So we're going to have to get him on the ground, right? And he talked about the Giants and some of the players that they have. Going back to Cliff Kingsbury real quick, he talked about Dexter Lawrence, and he's like, yo, he's a problem, man. He's like, you get him singled up on the center, forget about it. He said, and I'm just blown away by his stamina. He said Dexter Lawrence and Max Crosby are the two most disruptive players, along with Chris Jones, in the NFL to him. And so he's like, we're going to have to find a way to neutralize this guy, because he can wreck an entire game. Going back to Joe Witt Jr., he talked about 17, which is the second-year receiver out of Kentucky, Wan'Dale Robinson. He says they move him around, use him in a multitude of ways, which they do. And then, of course, he talked about Malik Neighbors and the problems and threats that he poses. And so we got to be prepared. Again, we can sit here and talk all the shit we want about Daniel Jones and him being trash, but if we don't clean up the deficiencies from a week ago, Daniel Jones will do what he's done to us many times over, and that is have one of his best games of his career. So I look forward to seeing them make those adjustments, because this group strikes me as a vastly different group than the last group that was here, who would just talk about things, but no action followed. This group strikes me as an action-based coaching staff, right? They're going to get results. They're going to get shit done. That was week one. And again, I'm not telling you that week two is going to be mistake-free football and you're not going to see some of the same issues. It's a process. I'm just telling you, by week 6, week 7, we shouldn't be seeing some of these issues. Hell, by week 4, week 5, we shouldn't be seeing some of these issues. But it's early in the season, and they got to iron out these kinks. You got rookies playing. Understand that a rookie is playing one of the most pivotal positions on the field defensively for us, and Mike Samerstill. He's playing that star position, which is the key communicator on defense. He's the one, and he talked about, matter of fact, let's transition to the locker room scrum with the players. We heard from Ertz, Wagner. We heard from Mike Samerstill and Emmanuel Forbes. I'll start with Samerstill, since that's a perfect segue. He said, as the communicator, I got to make sure that I'm loud and I'm making sure that guys are understanding the communication. He said, I don't think I did a good enough job of communicating to the fellas. And the biggest infractions that I saw in the game were all communication-based. So he's like, that's on me. I got to do a better job. I wasn't as loud as I had been at practice, and I got to make sure that guys are clearly understanding the message that's being conveyed to them, so that we're all on the same page. So he talked about, the game wasn't too fast for him or any of that. He was like, they didn't do anything that we didn't prepare for. We just didn't communicate well. And he said, that falls in my lap, and I got to be better, and I will be. Zach Ertz talked about, Jaden Daniels' poise and how he's gaining the trust, not only the trust, but the respect of the guys in the locker room with his performance. Ertz said, yeah, the 16 rushes was a bit too much, but he's going to continue to get better, right? But Cliff Kingsbury, just going back to Cliff once more, he said the reigning MVP of the league had 16 rushes in his first game of the season versus the Chiefs. Touche. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And he said, I'm not saying that he's, Lamar Jackson, but I didn't hear many people complaining about Lamar Jackson's 16 carries in week 1. Again, I'm just saying. So at the end of the day, Jaden is going to be Jaden, and I want him to remain who he is. He'll throw the football more. There were more opportunities to get rid of the football. 16 is a lot. I'm not sitting here. This isn't college. 16 is a lot. He won't do that many more times. But if he has to do it in a game, I'm not going to blink. I'm not going to flinch. Doesn't sound like Cliff is either. But Zach talked about, 16 is a lot, and he'll get rid of it more, right? He'll find guys to get the football to. But ultimately, they felt good about what they were able to do. And Zach was the one that corrected me. He said, we had a chance to score on 5 of 8 possessions. And that's when I said 8. Oh, yeah, we had to kneel down right before the half. They count that as a possession. So that was it. He said, by NFL standards, that's among the best in the league. Like, ain't a lot of teams out here having a chance to score on 5 out of 8 possessions. So, again, you got to be really excited about what this offense could potentially be. Bobby Wagner talked about the defense, and he said, look, first of all, Bobby Wagner funny as shit. So JP Finley said to Bobby Wagner, Daniel Jones he just called him Jones. He said, Jones has had some really, big performances against Commanders. And, you weren't here for some of those, but he said, Jones? He said, yeah. He said, Daniel Jones? He said, yeah. He said, Daniel? He said, yeah. He said, Daniel Jones? He's like, yeah. You could tell Bobby's like, Giants Daniel Jones? Bobby Wagner was like, that trash ass quarterback in New York. You can see he was with his face and the inflection in his voice, and how many times he had to get clarification, like, which Jones are you talking about? Jones. JP said, yeah. He said, Daniel? JP said, yeah. He said, Daniel Jones. He said, yeah. He said, and then he went, huh. Hey, Bobby, wrong for that. So that was funny to me. But he said, look, a lot of the guys on defense, collectively as a group, that was the first time they saw a lot of that stuff. And it was their first game out there. They, know that they got to clean up some things. They got to tackle better. But all in all, they felt like a lot of the mistakes that were made were correctable offenses, and that they're going to be better moving forward. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this defense, become the unit that I thought they were going to be when the season started, which was, one of the best in recent memory here in Washington, and a unit that we can lean on week in and week out to give us a chance to be competitive and possibly win some games. So I think they're going to improve dramatically here and rather quickly, I may add, too. And then Forbes was just talking about communication. That's the thing he kept harping on, is we got to communicate better. We got to be better in that regard. So you go from there to behind enemy lines. And I can't stress to you, we went over this last night, but the Commanders are a 1-point favorite in this game. There's so many layers to why this is an important game for the Commanders. And I've kind of talked about this, kind of glossing over, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this today, but understand that this is a big game for a multitude of reasons. It's the first game at home. We got to start establishing home. And one of the things that all the players said, Ertz said this, because it's his first time playing as a home player at Northwest Field, or Stadium, excuse me. Mike Sainristil said, we got some of the best fans, which he hasn't experienced. He only experienced the love from camp, and it was a huge turnout, and they felt the love. Bobby Wagner said the same thing, I'm looking forward to playing in front of the home fans for the first time. And Luke McCaffrey was another guy that spoke, and he talked about letting it rip the next time he has an opportunity to touch the football. He was like, I didn't want to make a bad play worse, but I saw it on the film and I had a shot, and he said, I'm gonna let it rip next time. But he just talked about the opportunities that he's been presented with, and he's excited about the challenges that lie ahead. But he felt like he played well in his first career NFL start, and he talked about the fans and playing at home in his first home game coming up this week. And he's like, the fans have been great, and I'm looking forward to seeing these fans. They've been tremendous to us in camp and things of that nature. So I want the turnout for them in this first game to be great. I want the support to be there. I don't want them to feel like they're on the road here against the Giants. I want them. This was a perfect first opponent, because while Giants fans are going to show up, the Giants stink. So they're not as enthused to get up out of their homes and come down, make the drive, and be here. Now, the diehards are going to do it. The people that live in the area that want to see their team are going to do it. But the people that need that extra motivation from a great performance in week 1 to get up and come aren't going to be there, right? So I think we got a chance to really make this like 70-30, 80-20, right? Our fans over theirs. I want that kind of feedback from you guys that are in attendance in this game. And I did my part by, getting 2 tickets and making sure that we put 2 more Commanders' asses in seats. And I think that's important, that you're playing your first game at home. We were abysmal at home last year. We won 1 game at home, and it was the first game of the season. We did not win again the rest of the season. We're wearing the gold pants for the first time since 2019, or maybe it was 2018. We need to make a good impression. I want to see us do well in the gold pants. It's Jayden Daniels' first career home start. It's a division game. We won none of them last year, and we haven't beaten the Giants in 4 straight games. All of this needs to, be something that is in the, forefront, maybe the back of your mind, depending on how important you rank these things. But it needs to be somewhere in your consciousness that this is an important game. And you're 0-1, and you don't want to fall to 0-2 with a road date on Monday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals looming over your head. You really need to win this game if you're the Commanders. The last time we found ourselves in this exact spot, week 2 against the Giants, after losing in week 1, knowing that we had an almost impossible task in front of us in week 3 on the road. Remember, back in 2021, we started 0-1. We needed to win the week 2 game. Quick turnaround Thursday Night Football against the Giants. That was a shootout. Heineke played his ass off, and we ended up coming back and winning that game. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence had the offsides to help us, but we won that game because we knew the following week we were going to Buffalo, and we knew we weren't going to win that game. Now, Cincinnati isn't Buffalo right now with the way that they're playing and the slow starts that they've gotten off to each of the last few years. However, it's still the Bengals. It's still the road. It's still going to be a tough environment on a Monday night. I don't want to go in there 0-2 hoping to get your first win of the season. All right. That's not a good look. So it's a very important game. Some of the matchups to keep in mind, Dexter Lawrence, as Cliff Kingsbury talked about, we got to find a way to neutralize him. Yeah, they got edge rushers, but the worst type of pressure is the pressure that is directly in your face, because there's nowhere to go, right? If you want to give Jayden a chance to deliver the football, be comfortable, you got to give him an actual pocket to throw from. Lawrence is a pocket disruptor, okay? He's a pocket crusher and crumbler. So you get him collapse in the pocket, Jayden then feels the need to retreat backwards. You're running right into the teeth of those 2 edge rushers who are going up the field. So we got to find a way to neutralize him. I've already said you double his ass every chance you get to stop him. But I think we're going to be able to run the football on the Giants. That's the thing that I think is going to allow us to neutralize them defensively. I think we're going to be able to run the football. The Vikings ran it very, very efficiently. Aaron Jones had a nice day, 16 carries, like 94 yards, something like that. I think we can run the football. And with Jayden's legs entered into the mix in the forefront of their mind, that's not in the back of their mind. They know his legs are deadly because of what he did a week ago. I think we're going to have opportunities to run the football on this Giants defense, and I think that's going to open up the pass game. And there's some guys on that Giants team that I want to shut up, right? Deonte Banks is among the top of the list. Remember last year after they beat us? The shit he was talking on IG Live after the game, how we didn't draft him and how he shut down Terry and we're trash and this, that, and the third. He's at the top of the shit list. I want to cook his ass just like I want to cook Kayvon Thibodeau's ass. A lot of shit talkers over there for a garbage ass team like the Giants. So it's some matchups that I would love to get after in this game. But at the end of the day, I just want to win. I just want to win. And so can we do the things that are necessary? Can we limit the Giants' explosives, make them earn it? I talked about that. That's going to be one of the keys to the game, right? Is don't give up anything cheap and deep to them, because Daniel Jones, every time you make him snap the football, something good could happen for your team, right? The more he snaps it, the more chances you have to force something bad to happen for them, good for us. So you don't want to give up anything explosive, cheap, and deep. So they can't run the football right now. They got no explosive runners. There's no more Saquon Barkley to deal with. So shut that run shit down and make Daniel Jones beat you. Make Daniel Jones beat you. These are things that we'll talk more about tomorrow, but I really feel like everything that we need is right there for us to get our first win of the season. But they got to go out there, and the Giants aren't going to hand it to us. They're not going to hand us a dub. As much as Giants fans want to tank for a quarterback, they got pride in that locker room, and it's one game of 17 that they've played. Those players aren't quitting. They're not thinking about next year. They're trying to win, and they're trying to make something of this season. And as quickly as Giants fans have turned on Daniel Jones and are ready to draft a quarterback, let them win 3 or 4 games here in the next 4 or 5 weeks. And just that quick, they're looking to try to have a season, right? Fans are fickle. They talking that shit now because he was awful. And yes, they need a quarterback. He's not the answer. That's obvious. They don't play us every week, so he's not the answer. But I'm ready to put a cap on that. Well, if we played Washington if Daniel Jones played Washington every week, he'd be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm ready to put a cap on that shit too. Let's end that shit now, right? There's a lot of shit. Daniel Jones is on that list of dudes where I'm like, hey, we need to silence that shit. Deonte Banks, Kayvon Thibodeau, Daniel Jones, silence all of that shit. You can do it all in one fell swoop. Let's see if they can get it done. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow and what it's going to take to get a win. This one feels good, man. This one feels ripe for the picking. All right. I'm looking at the Giants. They're on the Commanders tree, and I'm like, man, that Giant game looks ripe for a picking, a win, right? Let's pick that one off the tree. I don't know how many of these we going to pick off the tree, right? That are ripe, ready to be won. This feels like one of them. Again, if you're trying to build that culture in Washington, these are the types of games you need to win. I can't stress this enough. There's certain games where you just look at now and you say, hey, I don't know what Carolina's going to be 6 weeks from now when we see them, 7 weeks, whenever it is. They look like they're going to stink, though. You got them at home. You got to beat them. This Giants team just came off of a drubbing at home in front of their best players in franchise history. They got worked over at the crib. They're ripe for a loss here. They're ripe for picking off the win tree. Don't blow this opportunity. We'll talk more about how they can get it done tomorrow, though. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow, where we'll get our keys to the game, our prediction. We'll get the final look at the injury report, and we'll wrap up what has been a solid week of reflection for this team as they go into a big NFC East showdown with the New York Giants in week 2. Somebody's going to get something in the left-hand column. I don't see this one ending in a tie. Someone's getting a tally in the left-hand column. It needs to be us. If this game were in New York, I'd be a little bit more nervous. It's at home. We need to win. I'm going to be live with Bad Dog tonight on the NFC East Super Fringe channel as we go head-to-head talking about this matchup. If you've got time, we're going to be up there for about 30, 45 minutes. Come join us. Come chop it up with us. Look forward to talking and chopping it up with you guys there as well. Until then, and also you know where to find me after tonight's Thursday night football game, so you know what it is. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. Good night.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone.